the precedent was set early on with this car and in the meetings that we had with NASCAR about not messing with stuff and taking it pretty seriously. Last year, a few guys got busted and they had all their stuff upheld. So, for it to not be completely upheld this time around, I think shows a break in the system. And, I guess it's a matter of what you think you can get away with or how you build your case, how good your lawyers are. More money, more lawyers, better lawyers.
Mike Embry, NBC. You mentioned Indianapolis. The first turn there last year was bordered on crazy, repeatedly. Is there a solution to that, or is that among the reasons that the oval would be better there?
Yeah, I think the solution could obviously be single file restarts. I think the solution also could be that when you leave, I don't know what the turn is. I think turn 13 is the sweeper before the front straightaway. So 12, if between 12 and 13, if the leader was allowed to leave there and start building speed, you're still going to have the tail of the field that's braking getting into turn 10 and have to come through that S section before getting onto the front stretch. So, to me, that could be a solution where you're going to break up, the field a little bit and get some separation, so then you don't have as much calamity.
Would you prefer going back to the oval?
Yeah, I don't know why we ever went to the road course, to be honest with you. I don't think it really did an uptick or changed a damn thing in Indy. If we can't do a good enough job getting enough people to Indy to suffice us staying on the oval, then we need to go somewhere else. Just like anywhere. I'll say that about any track.
All right, we'll come right up front here.
Hank Kurz with AP. You'd obviously like to win every race, but failing that, how important is it for the sport and fan interest, especially that Ford and Toyota have finally won too?
Yeah, parity's always good, right? Last year we had 19 different winners, every manufacturer, obviously, and I think the guy who won the most races was it 4 or 5 races that they won? So, that it's been a while since it's been that few of races won by the top winner of the series. Typically, you see 7, 8, 9, 10 races of a guy who wins, but it just showed good parity, and I feel like a lot of that has more to do with this next gen race car than it does the manufacturers. But they're all working hard and doing the best they can with what they got, and we continue to build on what our program is at RCR with Chevrolet. So hopefully we can keep heading in the right direction.
In a lot of sports, people talk about parity like it's a terrible thing. Is it a good thing in racing?
Well, if you look at F1, I don't think there's much parity. So you could argue that where, you turn on NASCAR races and you kind of don't really know who's going to win each week. You know who's good at particular racetracks, and sometimes those guys, myself, will only win one race a year, so they're not winning every single week, where you turn on an F1 race and you're just wondering if anybody's going to beat Red Bull right now. It was Mercedes. So there's obviously a distinct difference between our two series.
We'll go over to Dustin.
Dustin Long, NBC Sports. In talking about the lack of respect, you talked last week about Tyler Reddick and saying, hey, you hadn't had any issues with him, you raced him clean. What is it that he has done or what you guys have been able to do where you haven't had those issues, in the sense of what do you see out of the respect? What is he showing that you are not seeing potentially out of other people that are young drivers as well?
I think that for me and Reddick, we've raced around each other and we've always been cordial with each other and given each other room. And, if you lay on a guy just a little bit, whatever, no big deal, give benefit of the doubt. But, you haven't had guys that just flat out run over you. So Reddick was one of those. And so you kind of remember those. There's a few others that are on the opposite end of the spectrum that if it would have been them in front, you throw it off in there and you don't care if it sticks. You'd rather you stick and they don't. And so that's just the nature of I think, our sport and what racing has been forever. I talked about it weeks ago with the past generation of, Jeff Gordon, Tony Stewart, Bobby Labonte, Mark Martin, all those guys, on how they did things and how I kind of remember growing up watching that and seeing that. Yeah, you had the Earnhardts out there and the other guys, some of the other guys that were a little rough sometimes, and that's, you're going to have that occasionally, right? But the week to week nature of it, the same guy being in the headlines running over somebody every single week is a bit tiresome. I remember Ernie Irvin back in the day, who obviously did a little bit of that, and had to come to Jesus meeting with the whole garage area of basically admitting his mistakes. But you're never going to see that in this day.
I'm also curious on a different topic in terms of social media. Obviously, you can get your word out in a lot of different forms. Obviously, a lot of news coming out about Twitter potentially or looking at taking away the blue check, the verified marks for people. I know you can get your message out on Instagram and Facebook, but obviously you do a lot through Twitter. Is that something, one, that you're looking at keeping the blue check and paying for it? And if not, does it change potentially how you might interact with fans or give some of your messaging? Because without the blue check, there may be some things where your message may not be seen as much.
This sounds like a politic question. I'm not into that thing. Yeah, that's not good. Why? Twitter's not a good thing anyways, but why ruin a good thing? The way that it is, it just doesn't make sense. So I feel like you're getting muted in a sense hearing that. That's the first I've heard of that. I had no idea. So would I keep the blue check mark? If I have to pay for it? Probably not. I'm cutting all my subscriptions right now. I don't need anything. I don't need TV. I don't need my phone. Nothing. So cut it. I'm out.
Any other questions? Yep, Bob up here.
Bob Hockris, Fox Sports. We often ask you about racing teammates, and is it any different? But I'm curious in the Ross and Danielle situation coming, is it any different on how you mend fences with teammates than non-teammates?
I think that has to do more with the team owner. When I had an issue with Jeff Gordon a long time ago, Rick brought us in and sat us down and we talked. And then myself and Denny, once or twice, once for sure, the All-Star race, but then after that it was a couple speedway racing incidents that we had where we just had to agree to disagree on our philosophies around speedway racing, and obviously he's won a hell of a lot more than I have at those, so he's better at that. But that was where Joe had to get involved and kind of talk us through our differences. But I think that's kind of where it lies, in my opinion. When I've had drivers at KBM that don't get along or whatever, I talk to them individually, and then I bring them together and I talk to them together and try to go over that stuff. So last week, looking at it, the Suarez incident, just the replay that I saw, I didn't go back and watch, but Chastain dove it in like anybody would and ran into the back of a guy who ran into the back of Suarez. So it wasn't maliciously intent to, the one to hit the 99. It just happened that way through chain reaction. But still, again, you got to be. Maybe I hit somebody with my front end when I got into the corner, but I think you can do a pretty good job of knowing where your stuff's at. Maybe he needs glasses. I don't know. I started wearing them this year. I see way better.
All right, we'll finish up front here with Deb.
Deb Williams, Auto Week. Kyle, you've been driving so long. You're so knowledgeable about cars and all. We hear a lot of these young drivers coming up now spending a lot of time in simulation. Do you spend much time in simulation, and do you find that much of a benefit to you, and if so, in what way?
Yeah. What a necessary evil. I have been in the Chevy sim more in the last 2 months of me being allowed in it than I think I have been in 3 years of the Toyota sim. Trying to get intertwined and ingrained into the system and how our setups are and how it feels and how it drives. I did the Coda tire test, so then I went in there and had to model the tire and build the tire to what I felt like the tire should feel like. And then, same thing, you always go in. We have a rotation of different drivers that go in after races and post the racetracks that we go to. So like I did Phoenix a little bit, I did Coda again. So there's a bunch of stuff that happens behind the scenes. And what's been most useful for us probably, I would say, was Fontana was really close. It was probably the closest to sim that we had on the real track, and lap times and everything, and our car feel was right on point. And so that gave us we won that one, so that was really rewarding. But then you go to Vegas and Phoenix and you struggle, and you can run 7th to 10th, and it has a similar feel, but you don't have the same speed. Like your lap times are off. Like if we were running the lap times that we ran in sim in real life, we would be up front leading all the races, you know. But it's just about finding that grip. Like something's not correlating between the sim and then the shop and the car that gets built that then gets brought to the racetrack. It's not the same model. That the car in the shop is not the same model that is the car that's in the sim. So we got to work on that.
So that's where your knowledge then of racing, as long as you've been racing in cars and all, would be more beneficial to you than like the sim is for the young kids.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the best sim we got. You know, I'm the most expensive one too. So I take pride in that because I feel like I give very detailed, and it can explain a lot about the feedback of the race car and what it's doing and its attitude and its nature and what happens on the short run, the long run, all of that stuff. So that's really where you get a lot of information, is the post-race meetings that we have, and dissecting me, basically downloading me and getting the information so that the crew chiefs can go back. Like last year with Ben, we struggled on sim and not seeing the correlation. So a lot of times we would just go off of our last race notes, what the setup was, what I said that needed to do better, and then just change the car around some of those ideas and not validate it on sim and go to the racetrack, and we were fine, or we were okay. You know, but that right now is not how we're doing it. This year we're going to sim, and we're trying to make that tool as representative as we can.